one night we got a call for a large pepperoni pizza. So I stuff it in my bag and off I go. And I had a 1973 Ford Torino. It was a piece of junk, but that's what I was delivering. I had a little sign on top. Went to a neighborhood I'd never really been before. And, if you deliver pizza, it's really awesome when the people are outside waiting on you because you don't have to find the apartment or the hotel room. So I see a guy and I go, oh my God, there's the guy. So I pull over the car and I jump out and I'm holding the pizza. I come running up to the guy. I say, I got your pizza. And he goes into his jacket. I think he's going in for his wallet. He brings out a gun. Now, I just moved from Scotland. I've never seen a live gun. So when he sort of moved the gun at me and pointed at me, I made a little shake, Ryan. I made a little ringle, a little jingle. And I thought to myself inside, that's not a real gun. So he said this to me. He said, give me the pizza. Well, I only worked for Domino's. So I gladly gave him the pizza. He said, give me your money. Everything I had except maybe $5 was their money. He said, give me the money. I said, all right, there it is. And then he said the third thing. He said, take your pants off. So and I said, hell no. And he hit me on top of the head with the gun and I could feel the weight of a Magnum 357. So what I realized was the gun was real. So as I lay on the ground with no pants on, I thought to myself, one, I'm going to make my mother happy, wear underwear. That was a bad idea, even though he thought it was, tread deep. And the other was to make beauty school pay off.
Welcome to the Hairpreneur Show, the show that teaches you, the hair pro, how to work smarter so you can make more, work less, and live a purpose-driven life on your schedule, not your clients'. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon, and each week I'll teach you awesome, actionable ways to tap into your personal greatness. Through marketing, mindset, and confidence training, it's time to unlock the next level of you. Let's grow. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hairpreneur Show. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon. Man, I am excited today. I am in the studio and I am seriously fanboying here. I've got somebody in the studio that takes no introduction. He, as far as I'm concerned, and many millions of people in the industry, he's a legend. I asked him how he'd like to be introduced and he's just like, you know what, just whatever comes naturally to you, just go for it. So he's somebody that just inspires me daily, inspires millions of other hairdressers and people around the world daily. Robert Cromiance is in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. What a beautiful intro. See, that wasn't so hard.
No.
When you've been in the business, I used to have to sometimes do my own intro. So it's just one of those things. But we were talking offline and we talked about listening to me as a kid when, I made 3 or 4 series on DVD. I remember a friend of mine who used to make it on a cassette. And I said to him, you should go to DVD. And he looked at me like I was crazy. So I had made a couple. I started off with one called The Art of Making Money. It was hugely successful. We used a lot, and it's a lot of the things I really discovered in the beginning of my career. How to make a living, how to increase prices, how to work with assistants if that was your game, but just elevating the game from a $25 experience to a $50 experience and so on. And for me, I then went in and made another one. I think it was called Belief System. I heard you guys talking about Anthony Robbins on your last podcast with Gina. I used to do Anthony's hair. You guys are all talking about him. I mean, I did his hair for 5 or 6 years. And his wife at the time, they used to be in San Diego. So I kind of worked a lot with him. And he has such a dynamic effect on people in the way that he puts stuff out there. I used to listen to a motivational speaker called Zig Ziglar, and I listened to his shit so much, I could recite it. I could hear it like an Elvis song and know what came next. And he had a beautiful rhythm of humor and point. So I kind of picked that up as a kid. So I kind of think of myself as a kind of comedian, but it's not about the joke. It's about what I can make you think about. My favorite selling T-shirt was a joke. It was about household hair care and doing your hair color at home. And I said, quit your bitching. You did it in the kitchen. I sold quite a few of those, Ryan. So it's using a bit of humor, not to ever take Andy down, but to really make a big point of what we are as hairdressers. And I think as educators, and you bring up entertainment, I'm probably one of the most entertaining guys you'll ever see on a stage. Vidal Sassoon told me so. And he didn't mention I was a great hair cutter. That is not the game I play. I do lots of amounts of hair. If I do 6, you're going to like 1. But the reality is everybody's got a different sort of skill set. But I think that it's very important to have mentorship, to listen to things like podcasts. And Gina gave us a shout out on our last podcast because she listened to me while she was in school. And it was a lot of just basic, systematic stuff that people can reinterpret through their vision of their role in the industry, however way they want to play the game. And I think there's merit to it. And I think I can't stop thinking about Gina, but she made a comment that I want to disagree with. And I agree with everything she said. getting back to the real thing, I love it more than MD would ever know because it's my element. But when you're at a show, and if I build a show for you to come attend, there's so many distractions for you from when JP walks in the room, from, something's going to happen. There's smoke, there's shit about to go down. And hairdressers are all over the place. They're all over the place. They can't focus on one thing. And sometimes I'll put 7 or 8 chairs going at one time. They don't know, they're going to explode. And the great thing about a podcast is when I used to do a lot of this stuff, and later we get into different technology, we would do a PowerPoint. So when I would talk about color bar, and incidentally, because I know you're color minded, I invented the color bar. That came out of my little pea brain. And when I think about the concept of it, it was about celebrating color, making a bigger deal about it than the supermarket. And by mixing in front of a client, you showed them that they couldn't do this at home. So there was a real concept behind it that became an industry reality. And I think that when I did it on verbal, just telling people, here's a color bar, and I'd tell a story, everybody would visualize their own interpretation of it. When I started showing mine, which is this 3,000 square feet color cathedral, people were like, oh shit, I don't have one of those. But it was about having an open air dispensary, a conversation that led you towards color. Many years ago, when the 50s perhaps, women would go behind a curtain to get their hair colored because they didn't want to be known as people who colored their hair. And then the commercial companies come out with, is she or isn't she? Is it natural or isn't it? But then some guy, and I think Nicholas French is his father that did it first, he brought it out and let people see it, and people seeing it bought more. So that's why I make a big deal about color bar, and the point of how we present color. It turns into an average ticket with shadow root, top coats, overlays. It's all a case of what do you want to do with it. And to me, sometimes the way our minds work is incredible. And sometimes a visual, like if I show you my salon, I go, well, my salon doesn't look like that. But if I tell you a story and you let your imaginarium, your brain, imagine yourself in that environment, what it says to you is more important. So I love hairdressers because we're visual, but nothing's more powerful than sitting down and just listening to shit. It's like the opposite. Watch movies with no volume. We'll teach you more about movie making and what you actually seen and what this music bed can make you feel, or dialogue for that matter. And a lot of people can learn from that. I am very verbal, but I can also do a show silently to music that will blow your mind because I'm used to editing movies. So I kind of work to edits. So it's all finding the pulse of how people learn. And I would just say for hairdressers, podcasts are probably great to get everything out of your peripheral just to hear one thing. You'll be amazing what your brain will come up with in conclusion to that. So I think you're doing a beautiful thing, and it's a great way to learn. And I don't think people do enough of it. And I think maybe more and more right now because they've had downtime. It used to be, I've never had time to listen to you. Now it's like, I got time. And for the whole industry, which we should, we'll get into a little bit later, the industry has slowed down through no fault of their own. And I would take numbers as drastic as 50%. So if we're in a situation here, we've taken clients for granted to some degree. 50% of them are not returning in some level or way or shape. So we got to make a bigger deal about each and every guest. Fewer clients, more meaning, a thorough consultation. Most people put color on and then they leave, right? What is this? Is it a color service? Is it an experience? Or is it a color? And to me, if you're going to put a 45-minute process in color, I expect to be entertained by 45 minutes. That's the type of bedside manner. We only need 100 clients to be successful. If we break down the boundaries of what we used to do with stacking and racking. You didn't know their names. You didn't do a great consultation consistently. Didn't recommend products. You didn't talk about next visit. You dropped the ball. You did 6 clients. You dropped the ball 7 times. What if you did 3 and you never dropped the ball? So that every client who's risking their life to sit in your chair right now, it matters. And my wife, who's a brilliant young hairdresser, she hasn't had a decline in her business from last year to this year. And she's producing an average ticket that's quite astounding. And she already had one. We've seen all of our staff increase 50 to 75, sometimes $100 gain per client, not by increasing COVID prices, by honoring the menu, working the menu, slowing down and being more accurate with purpose each and every guest. Fewer clients, more meaning. When I coach hairdressers how to speak on stage, it's fewer words, more meaning. It's really a case of really narrowing down which 100 clients make you happy. So now you can go through a list. If you've got 112, there's 12 that are driving you crazy. You can delete and recommend to a friend. But at this point, if we want the ideal lifestyle with the right balance of our life and our businesses, we got to be very focused on what that business can do. That's why Gina is such a powerful example. how to work that ticket up into something, no matter where you live. In my Paul Mitchell school, if you're playing your game right, you can work a ticket up to $80 to $100 with take home. These are incredible times.
And again, you bring up so many points, but one I wanted to really touch on was when I think back to when I started, I graduated in 2003, 2004-ish, right around there. And I had The Art of Making Money on repeat. I just listened to it all the time. And you were one of the first people to really talk about making hairdressing an experience. And that's what people are paying for. And whether you're going to be entertaining them, whether you're going to be glorifying the shampoo experience. I remember you used to call it what, sex in the sinky, right?
Yeah. I even hold back from that these days. I'm like, okay, I agree not to cross. I mean, that's where we've got to be. But I think everybody should speak their mind, but just be clever with it. That's all. And little things and little ways of saying things to get people to remember them. Children learn through rhythm and rhyme. So I'm always looking for ways to put a jingle to it to make it heard and people laugh. And I would do seminars, Ryan, and I would hear me when I said the bit on stage. It mimicked exactly what was on tape. So it was like listening to your favorite album. And because people were in their cars or whatever they were doing, people listened to it a lot. And people would say to me, if you fall off stage, I got you. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm just saying it's another way to learn. And we all have different learning skills. You know, the other thing that we have in common, again, back to Gina represents us all. We all sucked in skill, more or less. And with Instagram and such, I think we are going to get a more intelligent hairdresser coming in that had other options, that sees the art we do and say, I want to do that. That looks like more fun, because they don't really know what we do. But we've all come from a place where the world of IQ mattered more than AQ. And the reality is AQ is what I'm good at, working with people. And working with a guest behind the chair is my expertise. What I do on stage is easy compared to what magic I got to create with every guest experience. Is it memorable or forgotten? Just ask yourself that question. Was it something that they will remember? And if they do remember it, it's going to affect your frequency of visit. Right now, in the trend of what we're seeing numbers-wise throughout the industry, from Millennium, who's my software partner, we use Mevo, from 25,000 salons, is the frequency of visit is slipping. This is one of the biggest numbers that hurts our industry. If you drop from 6 to 4, your business would be reduced by 40%. I usually teach people how to take it from 4 visits a year to 6 to increase you by 40. But I'm just saying, through natural reality of COVID, people are slowing down their appointments. So one, if they are coming in, you want to celebrate them, give as much time, digital consultations, in a whole new world, because we're not passing out business cards on the street. So the reality of this new world that we're being brought into, in my opinion, is going to make us better service providers, better servants of the heart. These people are isolated. They haven't had much contact, and they're not going to get it from a bartender. When they're sitting in our chair, they become something else. And the touch point and the human sort of factor, we just started a GoFundMe page for our guests to contribute to our staff who are on their 3rd shutdown. And people looked at me, well, you're a gazillionaire, Robert. What's this for? I'm like, well, first of all, don't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. 3 years ago, it said I was worth 52 million. This year, I'm down to 10.1, according to them. I put every penny, like you have, into your business. I didn't do this for the dollar value. It's not the game I play. But at the end result, when I see my staff waiting in their car, pulling up, and everyone getting an envelope, I see a rainbow, that they will have faith that their clients love them. My clients sometimes tip me $150 or as much for the cost of the haircut, and they tip me on top of that. And these are retired skill teachers, because what I do when they're in the building is very different from just a haircut. And the fact that I can take a lady who's retired and make her float on slippers out of the door, that's the game we play at the end of the day, whichever way you want to interpret that. And I think there's something to be learned by the data on the board right now, how we can make a bigger difference per guest, how we can have fewer of them and still hit the financial goals we had, and really get down to picking the ones we love and building the ideal clientele. My boy's 21. His name's Reed. He's got to build a business. I said, you don't want clients who walk on the door. You want to build a group of clientele that are friends like you, with interests like you, that so that when you look at your column and you see your guys, you're like, this is just fun. This is an interesting day. And a lot of hairdressers get caught in a trap of doing everybody's hair and then end up hating the job. I'm saying now's the time to pick your ideal clientele, how many days a week you want to work, and then figure out a way that you can make every experience the most memorable thing in the world. And with that fewer little moving parts, with the love and joy and attention per guest, you're going to prosper while other people are going to have a hard time. And I would say no matter where you live, Ryan, this affects you, no matter what type of company. If you work at Supercuts, Sport Clips, whether you're in Beverly Hills, this is the way I would play. If the traffic is slower, slow down on purpose and be more efficient and be a better caretaker in general and serve the people. And I think it will serve you in the end, because we've been overpacing. I made a video a couple of weeks ago for our clients to tell them, hey, I'm sorry, we were overdoing it. We were seeing so many people, we didn't know their names. You just go beyond. And everybody said, when we said the shutdown, they go, how am I going to make a living without triple booking? I said, well, shit, it's a surprise to me you could make a living triple booking, because you weren't. Your retention was slipping. Your average tickets, everything goes wrong. So slow it down a little bit and see if you can't get more enjoyment out of it, more quality, more experience with the client. And I think you'll see a whole difference in the way you play the game. And that's the reaction I would have if you're being affected by this. It's time to do it. We could have talked about this before COVID, Ryan. People hear, yeah, here. Now I'm just going to triple book her. Yeah, squeeze another one in. I can prove it to you with the service ratio. If you're doing 1.2 services a guest and you do 6, and if you were actually doing a 2 service per guest ratio, you would only need 3. My wife's an example of it, and a lot of our employees, they really work the ticket. And we have another store that's very young-minded. They still do it in proportion. So even at a $35 haircut, they're getting to an $85 to $100 service ticket. This is the way to measure, to know that you're doing it right. And fewer clients making your dream happen is really what you should be focused on right now. And something happened in it's like a snow globe. Somebody shook it up and here you go. There's going to be so many shifts, so many closures, and so many opportunities. So we're starting to recruit as a company because we see the value. And right now there's people unemployed. They've been laid off. There's people in the freelance world, which I work for many occasions. And this is a statement I make very cautiously. If you were doing 2,000 a week and your rent was $400 and you dropped down to 1,000, your rent just became 40% of your business. So if you've got a part-time clientele, what you may need is a part-time job, not a full-time rent. So right now, when I look at it from my scope as a salon owner that has a team type salon that we pay people that through this whole thing, at least they've been getting unemployment. Often their tips are included through their pay system. So they even got it to the highest level because the gratuity was recorded. So in a way that what they hated that became a reality of a benefit. So I just see shifts happening. We're paper free now. We're really going to a call center type reservation. So there's nobody at the desk, self-checkout. We used to have an assistant program, which meant we passed off to people, and now we don't. And one guy, 29 years working for me, selling shampoo for the first time because he's doing his own shampoos. He's fallen in love with the product. And I just think that product isn't about selling it. Everybody goes, oh, you're the Paul Mitchell guy. Here comes the product. But it's truly about retention. If they don't buy into your product recommendations, they're not coming back. I'll just be honest with you. So believe it or not, a client leaving with a product is an indicator better than Yelp that they are coming back to you. And that education and information is vital. And how you bring it alive, don't leave it for the internet. They can't bring it to life, let you touch it, sniff it, try it on, put it in your hair, work it through your hands and see the result. We got that. We got to demand more as hairdressers that professional side, that recommendation, we should dream up a 40% reality to that, because that's the reality of, if you're in a high street salon, you're paying high street rent, retail rent, and you're selling no retail. Imagine Bed Bath & Beyond, they'd be out of business. I think they're going out of business. So if you have a rent or an overhead, you may as well commit to what would it take to get your retail numbers to 20, 30, 40%. What incentives would your crew need if you're self-employed? I know a young lady who pays her rent annually, which is $400 a week, through the profits of her retail sales. So reimagine your world, reimagine how effective you can be. And, this is a great time to pause and start. While we were closed down, we put in Mevo, a new software. While we were paused, we changed to paper-free and cash-free and all these things. The closure helped us. There's a silver lining to it in so many ways, but the adjustments we have to make, it will not be the business as usual. And everything before COVID is off the table as far as coaching goes, in my opinion. People, I could listen to their salon stories many years ago. Now I want to hear people that are in the business right now because everybody's struggling. And I'm part of a worldwide network, Ryan. So I'm talking to hairdressers in Australia, the UK, all over the US. And, these are indicators that I don't just have a hunch on. This comes from reality of what I'm seeing. So Now's the time, if you love the industry, let's find the clientele that you can show love to and mean it, instead of saying you love it, but your face doesn't say so. It's easy at a party. Go, I love being a hairdresser. Well, how come at work every day your face says otherwise? It's mean it. My son got to assist me for the few months before we closed. And he said, Dad, I can take a picture of you at any time with a client in your hands. And they're lit up from every aspect of it. Being on stages and being on a platform, every single guest it's a stage performance. It's how you set it up. And it should be systematic. And I know you all resist structure, but through structure, you increase your performance. So you become more consistent, which is what a client wants. I don't care what type of hair they want. You want to be a consistent service provider, not just good on Wednesdays or a Friday when you got your paycheck. Good all the time. And that's where structure can come into play. And, these are all things I think are very critical to it for a hairdresser to succeed right now, because it's going to be, if you thought it was tough before, you're in California, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When I found out how many licensed professionals there were in California, I knew why it was so hard to build a business in California. There's too many of us. I think they need to restrict how many salons open, just like they limit how many Hackney cabs drive in London, because there's too many. And it creates that most salons don't have the right workforce. So the reality is, through this, however many 100,000 there are in California, this is quite a substantial adjustment that people have had to make. And as I say, salons are closing. So I'm not saying, hey, go close your salon. They're doing it. It's happening. So having fewer salons may be good for the industry, that there's more people available for the workforce and more to make the world go around. So salons are busier. Hard to have an overhead. You can't justify it, because right now we've seen our numbers, and in California, you'll really recognize this. We were open a duration of time. We were about a third down. We closed again. We reopened. Now we're about 2/3 down. I'm just saying we're not seeing the numbers going the right way here. So as we look to when we open again, we're not expecting let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. We're expecting to have to work every inch of it to build it back up from getting new clients, because we've seen an increase in that because of the safety protocols we made a big deal about. We over manage them. We do it like platform artists would cut hair. We emphasize it. We commit to it. It's not something like a party you're coming over to and I've seen you clean the house. I want you to see me scrubby the station, wipe it, sanitize it. These are all things that give the client the perspective that they're in a safe place. More important, and people are yelping about it. So we're seeing new traffic coming in the door, Ryan, that is coming in the door because we've had great reviews of people saying how safe they felt. And I think this is a beautiful way to build a brand new business. But most people are starting out, whether you're just in the career beginning or you've been in it for years, you've got some rebuilding to do. That's a fact of it. So that comes best with reputation and experience, not from an ad in the yellow pages. And you may be dazzling on Instagram, but that's not the only medium, but it is a very vital one. But you've got to put your mind to it. It won't just happen because Jesus loves you.
So right now we're in the third shutdown in California, and it's just really just unprecedented for what stylists and salon owners are facing. What advice would you give to stylists right now, say in California, or those that have had their businesses really impacted elsewhere in other states and countries? What should they be focusing on right now? Because I guarantee a lot of them are just sitting on their butts, probably watching the news, waiting for the day when they can go back to work.
They haven't minded the shutdown as much as you'd expect from different points of view.
Right.
It's like there's been a lot of time off lately. And then I think when we open out, somebody's like, well, I need my vacation. I'm like, you just have 3 months off. So I think there's certain salons out there that, just like my wife and I are asking ourselves, moving forward, does the business model work? Because at the end of the day, it's not a salon, it's a business. So that's one thing. And I will say for all of you out there, there's no judgment here. Now you've got an out, which you've never really had before, because, if the airlines are going to lose $200 billion this year, and you look at other like-minded businesses that are dropping out that were bigger than ours in many ways, there's nobody too big to fail here. And I just think this would be a time that nobody give you shit over saying, hey, during COVID, I decided not to continue. And for hairdressers too, that's happening. They're going, I don't want to wear a mask at work. I don't want to work with people. I want to put my family in jeopardy. This is all, again, understandable, Ryan. But for those of us that are going to continue on in whatever shape, form, we got to adjust and pivot. And where you're trying to have a team meeting and tell people we're changing rules, the resistance is overwhelming. This one, the government did it. Things out of our control. And I think that's a beautiful place to come from. So this kind of new territory, everybody's very willing to move in a direction of newness and try different things. But some people say protest the governor, that's not where I'm coming from here. There's a lot, even more fractures. There's home hair happening bigger than ever before. And we're seeing it. It's showing up. I'm seeing it show up in so many ways. When people break habit cycles, things change. So I'm just saying that the reality of what's going on in the industry is a shakeout that is beyond the closure. And if you're going to continue, then what's going to be different? If somebody's going to risk their life to come see you, what's going to be unique about the experience and who you are? And I think that's the part people need to really justify and use their imaginarium to build up what that looks like. Everybody throws that word brand around on the internet all day. Define your brand by the experience you're going to offer, not how cool you think you'll look on the internet. Please design it by the details you put in, the way you handle your guests, and that'll become the word of mouth traffic that takes you over the top. These are simple equations. So for me, probably talking every day on it. And, as much as it's about California, it's not like it's about the community. Worldwide hairdressers has been affected. Distribution's been affected. We've all been trying to get to a digital platform, and now we have to. Yeah, and I think this is the big realities that we're dealing with. And in a way, for me to send, or my wife and I to go to North Dakota to do a show for 1,000 people would take 4 or 5 days of our life. And now with a well-purposed Zoom call, and I think I can make a Zoom call just as entertaining as a hair show because I understand what movie we're watching. And I just think that the reality is, if you look at it from a time, life, efficiency, a cost point of view, there's no reason for us when this is over to go back to the old way. I know everybody's missing hair shows, but there's certain aspects of it that were not positive and aren't educational. And I grew up in the hair show world, but we don't have to go back to what we were doing. So when we visualize digital worlds, I'm not trying to create the show I used to do. I have bigger advantages now. I have captive audience. I've got you on frame. I can actually call out every person in the audience's name if I want to, which I couldn't do at a live show. There's so many tricks you can play on it that it's a fascinating way. And then you put it on the internet and then 100,000 people see it. I was in a school recently, 2019, they won me. And somebody made a video. I can't remember if it was my wife or not, but I seen it just accidentally come up on my memories, and it had 97,000 views. And I've reposted it just the other day, and I was like, it picked up another 10,000. For a guy that does what I do on stage to get 10,000 viewers, I mean, I do shows with 10 and 12,000 people. But to get to 100,000, I have a clip on IGTV with 2 million views. I've traveled for 35 years, 7 or 8 million miles, and that would be the sum of my whole career in one little video. So talk about being able to put it out there and really get it in the places. What a great way to build a following, to create a voice. And I think this is a fascinating time. And I'm very excited about it. Typically, a guy my age wouldn't be, but I find it fascinating, and what it brings to me, Ryan, what I get to get visibility on. The industry in the 1980s and the era that I lived up and was the king of rock and roll and had a real hard time getting information. The only way to get it was at a hair show. That is not the new way. And hair shows will be redefined and reclassified, and probably less about the real audience being there, almost like the spectators to Bill Maher, and more about the televised version that goes home with people. And the thing I love about Zoom, when we get on these calls with our own team, I see them with their children, feeding the baby. To have a salon meeting before, everybody had to get sort of glamorized, drive downtown, and now we can do it all. And, whether they're walking the dogs, whether they're working out, I don't care what it is. I just think this is a great new way to communicate that we have to embrace and get really good at, because some of the digital offerings so far have not been very good. They feel limited because they missed the old way, but I just think that there's ways to use the technology and creative ways to put it into link that it can be just as entertaining. Some of the TV shows have done it already. I actually done the hair at the Billboard Music Awards. They did a pre-run, premeditated. It ran on time. MTV just did it, and it's just beautiful television. It's a much more controlled format, and I think there's ways in which we can communicate better. Because if I go to a show like BTC, you go to that show, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She builds one of the most beautiful showrooms in the world. It also sits empty a lot. So the reality is that show is built. When I'm up there, I got a full crowd, and other people do. But a lot of times, some people don't have the crowd. People don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And I just think that this platform has that ability to go further. And I don't know how much Mary spends on her stage, sometimes a couple of million. You don't have to do that. So I'm just saying it becomes a fascinating viewpoint that I have on the future of the beauty industry. And just like the revolution we've had with Instagram, I think we're about to see another level of it, which is this digital learning, including hands-in, which again seems like the hardest. But because we have schools, Ryan, we're obviously into that moment. Every school's got installed these remote control cameras in the ceiling. They pick up like whiskers. I mean, they're on remote control load in, one operator, no camera crew needed. So very efficient. And this is becoming a reality world here. So just like platform, and I think you said it, you weren't the kid many years ago, but as you do this job a lot, we get good at it. That's why I'm a good platform artist. I used to do 4 shows a day over 3 days. I mean, you do it a lot, you get good at it. And I think that's where we have to kind of embellish in this technology and figure out what's the best way to get people in, and how do you involve an audience even though they're on the other side. That's the trick, and it can be done. It's done every day when you're glued to the television. It's done every day. You know, I don't think you'd like to watch an episode of your favorite TV show being made live.
Right.
You know, edit, it's the magic. You know, what I love about show business is creating misdirection and being able to speed up how quickly you see things. And if it's about live trickery, you've got to eliminate what's irrelevant. And I just think this is going to be a level in which my wife and I already do a lot of the Zoom education, but I can make people feel like they're on a train, just like I do on a show where it's going and you never know what's going to happen next. And it doesn't need to be live. It can be pre-segmented, pre-bits, pre-filmed, all these bits that you get to create your own little TV show in a way. And I just feel that the way people learn and all this stuff, this is going to become a whole new thing. And I just know a lot of it instinctively from show experience of what I'm trying to do when I build a theater or when I take a show on the road. And what buttons do I have to hit? What ta-das do I have to create surprise? A lot of people don't understand the element of surprise. It's like a jack in the box. And, you know, so to me, in one little show, I got to make 9 buttons pop. I got to get reaction from the audience, whether it's laughter or applause or something. And these days, it's actually iPads, photographs, you know, that you don't get applause anymore. You get all the cameras surging forward. That's the modern day applause right there. So you know you're onto something. And that's what you've got to kind of refine into it. And by premeditating, you can edit it down to these wonderful, spectacular moments, and not just you live hoping your haircut's even, or, you know, is this
right
process? Some company did a big color point of view and you never seen a finished result. I'm like, well, in a video, I can show you the end result first, get your buy-in that this is important, and then take you on a journey. So as a busking platform artist and a guy that does build shows for 12,000 people and participates in shows of that size, I feel like I'm so excited for my team and all the guys that work at Paul Mitchell to take that journey and help them be like the masters of it, because that's just the reality when people are craving for education. And I wonder, when I see it all over the internet for free, it's everywhere. And yet still people are saying, oh, we got to have education. So I just think it's going to get redefined here. And we've resisted it before COVID when we all moved towards going all this electronic way. But not until this did we all realize how important it is. And right now, when are we going back to the old way? I hope never. There's no reason to. We got to reform a whole new way, and that's going to happen. But I want to launch products. I want to do shows. I want to do tricks on camera. I mean, I cut hair with forks. I do hair with balloons, helium, fans. I cut hair with a fork. I mean, I do some crazy shit. And I'm always in my mind looking for more stuff. I did a great trick you'd love, Ryan, shrinking hair. So the girl comes out and she's there and the hair just shrinks up with your thing. Girl comes out on stage, her hair flips into a mohawk. Nobody's around her, nobody's near her. People are like, oh my God. And then to learn the trick, I started off on the dress. So I'd do the girl's hair, she'd walk out and then her dress line would rise up automatically. And I'd get down there with hairspray and I'd spray it with a can of hairspray and people thought the hairspray made the dress move.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's trickery. And, you know, that's to me what I'm into. And everything's got to have a point. You know, it's not just doing something to be jackass. It's got a point to it. So the fans we use on photo shoots to make hair come alive, I cut hair on my last big show with 3 of those, 3 dancing boys to the beat. And I did 3 haircuts. The first one blows all the hair up in the top. And with a razor double clipper, I take the top off of it. So it's that kind of square layer. And that girl's done. I take the next girl and I put the boys behind her. They blow the hair to me, double clippers in the front. I knock out both sides at once. And the third girl is an A-line bob. So we reverse her. They blow her front hair back to me and I get it from behind. 2.5 minutes, 3 haircuts. And people are, no way you do that. And the three sciences of haircut are recognized in that 3-jump piece. If I could have somebody hold all the sections up and cut it, it's the same thing. I'm using wind to create the elevation, the trickery. And the other thing I think, if just because you have such an influence, taking risk is an important factor. I will take the risk, even if it doesn't work, and my audience will love me for it. But I see too calculated, not enough risk taking, whether that's in your communication or whether it's in the risk of what you're doing. I think when people want a live hair, they want to see a bit of risk. They want it because we're fearful. We're all fearful. We're all just shitting our pants when we cut somebody's hair off. So for me, when you see that risk being taken, in our company, we often don't do a lot of pre-done hair. Almost everything we do is live because to me, that's the element. Now, if you're a slower cutter and everything else, yeah, you could do a little pre-work on it. I can live with that. But most of the team understand that it's just timing is a placement in people's mind that you can't replace. And if it takes you 45 minutes to do an updo and I can get you to a place you could do it in 3 minutes, you're going to have such a crescendo on that 3 minutes. So it's a case of thinking of what you can prepare in advance that's in there, that as you're doing and dropping, it comes alive the quickest. The further away from the action of finish, then the audience forgot even what model you're working on. And then add in a couple, 2, 3 more chairs, hairdressers' heads are spinning. So I'm just saying this is a beautiful opportunity for the whole beauty industry, myself, my young son, others around us to inspire one another digitally and figure out these new frontiers, if you will, just like we did in the old days with platform artistry and shows that we do. It's got to be cracked because it's not going to dissipate. And, I'm not going to close my salon down for a class. The governor took care of that. So now I want it fed in differently. And it's not going to be a gathering at the salon anymore. It's just not going to be. It's like, let's have a gathering. And everybody's craving this thing. And I want to get it all out of your minds. It's Etch-a-Sketch. Give it a shake. We're starting over. This is exactly where we're at.
I was listening to an interview earlier today that you had with Anthony Mascalo. And you had mentioned the time that you were on stage and you made a mistake and you just owned it. I think you had grabbed a can of, you thought it was hairspray and it was shampoo or something like that. You were on stage. And can you tell me about that and how important it is to just maybe not take yourself too seriously and just kind of roll with it?
Try to be honest with it when it does go wrong. So it was actually one of my very first shows. So it could have been the first weekend of shows. And we had a 3-day show, slightly private. It wasn't a trade show, but I'm up there with a legendary rock star that worked with Paul Mitchell, the man. I mean, her name's Jean Bra. She can do anything with hair. Her dexterity, finger waves, cut hair, perm hair, put it up in 2 pins, honeymoon hair, she called it, 1 pin. She was a magician. So I became this sort of second kid to her. And a lot of what I did in the early days was help her and model call, find models. I was just her helper. And I would work platform with her. And while I'm on platform, and think of this as like playing tennis with somebody better, while I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I could have set myself on fire, Ryan. Nobody was watching the beach chair. That's how talented this lady was. And over time, working with her 10 years, eventually I was able to hold a power of my own. But the kind of reality on the first show of the second day, I'm up there and we're kind of doing this stuff. And I'm doing finger waves. So at the time, we didn't use a lot of blow dryers. And, I'm doing this finger wave set. So the product we use is called sculpting lotion. I salt and pepper it on. That's what you're supposed to do. So I dredge the hair with it. I start combing it through like you would, over combing it because I'm a platform artist, combing it because that's all I really knew how to do. And then I noticed in my hands, it was sort of lathering. And I realized that all the bottles are very black and white, especially in those days, they didn't have any characters. I had lifted a bottle of shampoo, one and not sculpting lotion. And right as it's happening, because it sounds like a long story, but it's really happening in seconds of time, I sort of sheepishly look at the audience and I see that some people have caught on in the front row that I got a problem. So it's not like I can hide from it. So I just call it out. Well, the audience laughed so hard. And remember, this is my new boss. We come off stage. I get backstage with her and I said, I'll never do that again. I made a mistake. It was an honest mistake. She goes, Robert, that was hilarious. Do it next show. And we did. We put it into the show. We now did it. But even if you don't do it again, but you tell the story, the last time I did this, suddenly there's laughter, and when there's laughter, there's learning. And many people take themselves too seriously on a stage. And I think, Anthony, on that interview you mentioned, he's a brilliant hairdresser. He, to me, is one of the greatest of our generation. And I'm a showman of a different nature, and I can pull a crowd like nobody's business. And sometimes that gets in Anthony's way because he's not that guy. That's not who he is. He's one of the greatest hairdressers I admire, but I have a gravitational pull with an audience. And it's just one of those things, and dare me to do it. And I do it in countries where I'm not famous. It's not something, people say, well, it's because you're Robert Crummies. I can do it anywhere. Trust me. It's a dynamic. People want to watch me cut hair. They want to see the risk I'm going to take. And Anthony knows there are differences. And artistically, I can't criticize the guy at all. He's just one of the best you'll ever see. And, for me, that's the kind of recognizing what you're good at, hone in on it. And if you're not the spokesperson of the company, get a good yapper involved in it. Or tell the story visually with edits and words. There's so many ways you can do it. You don't have to be, I work with Fern the barber. He's not a big talker, but he can cut some hair. And everybody can do it in their own little way. If you're verbal like we are, yeah, go for it in a verbal way. But even for me, sometimes when I'm doing presentations, especially at a big show like a Paul Mitchell gathering, I'm going to hit something in 2 minutes. I'm going to give you everything you need in 2 minutes. You got to know how to bring it down to just the ball bearings of what is the essence of what you're trying to say. Hairdressers tend to talk too much during the consultation when they're with their clients. It's just, we got to bring it down and hone it in. And I think that's a beautiful kind of science to learn. And as I say, right now, we're just kind of coming off across what makes people learn is what I'm excited about. And I've learned so much in the industry being a teacher from watching an audience not respond. And the thing I love again about laughter, I can tell at any point if I've lost the audience. Because if I'm dropping little one-liners all the way and I'm hearing crickets, it's not that it's not funny. I'll take an ooh, even over laughter. At least I know they're still listening. But the human mind is so fascinating that there's so many ways to get information into people's head. It's not just going through the format. I did the class. Well, did they learn the haircut? Can they do it themselves? And if the answer is no, then you're really not the teacher you think you are. And sometimes when people, just an example, and think about this, you must have seen it once or twice. You'll see somebody up there perhaps cutting hair, and they say, I'm going to pull it over here instead of over here because what I don't want. And I'm like, why are you telling people what you don't want? Right? So to me, human mind can only take, what do you want? All you got to say there is, I'm pulling the hair here because I want this. That's teaching. Telling people what you don't want, telling people what you've done or what you're going to do is also irrelevant when it comes to the live action of the sport of demonstrating hair. And getting as close with the camera as you can. I watch a lot of kids. They frame themselves up and then the model. And then the whole time I see no hair. So there's a science to it, like the way we build a show, the way we build a photo shoot. And the great thing for a lot of your viewers and listeners, it's out there. Go look at the machines. Look at the things that turn you on. Look at the people that are liking it a lot. And I'm just saying it's a beautiful way to research it, which is ripping off other people, which I love. That's what research is. Taking an idea from many, it's just one of those things. And I don't know how I did my job before I had all these visual tools, meaning a storyboard, a video clip, an idea I've got, and then we're going to do this. And sometimes I can only get the communication across through visuals. But nowadays I used to have to go buy 12 Italian Vogues for $1 million. Now it's everywhere. And the people who I follow or stuff feeds into me every day. Every day I'm getting a new idea from somewhere. It's the most generous resource I've ever been given. And I shame on the young industry who don't use it. I shame on you people. It's not about being followed. It's about what you get access to. And whether it's you stumbling today upon me, you're getting access to stuff and that happens to me in my world a lot. I'm often the wild card at a show in Italy. They're like, who's that crazy looking guy? I go, come see. But, this is just a whole new world. And I am pretty passionate about it, even though I've been doing it a while the old way. And if MD wanted to lock down of what we're going to miss about the good old days, it would be me, because I had the most charmed life in the beauty industry, all because I got a license. But I am not looking for the good old days to return. I'm looking for the good new days. And looking forward, I see a whole new way that is less fatiguing. Half the platform artists in the world are alcoholics because we have a routine. And I don't know. I don't drink that much, I found out while I'm home. So it's a tradition from model call, I'll see you in the bar, for, trade show meeting, I'll see you in the bar after the show, I'll see you in the bar. So for my poor liver, I'm like, okay, this is a whole new way for Robert Crummies to do business. And we have a beautiful young team at Paul Mitchell. So I can help them on some of the edges too, to kind of take some of that showbiz world through. And I love the beauty industry, and I'll keep pushing forward and to keep opening my big mouth. I have a voice. I don't take it for granted. That was one thing that was quite humbling about our GoFundMe page. I built it for the clients because we heard from them 3 times during our shutdown. We're talking to them for 30 minutes at a time. And they all said, what can we do to help? So that's really what motivated. So it's really for the clientele. But based on once we put it on the internet, it turned into a global thing. So I've seen donations today from Iceland, Germany. Salons are doing things I have a buddy in Texas, Visible Changes. He's got his whole 500 people involved in it. It sort of spun further than I thought. And I think further than the team thought. So being loved by the industry is very important to me. When I'm on stage at the end of the day, when I think of every hairdresser's emotion, what we really want to be is loved. Love from the guest in the chair, love from our audience. It's just a thing I think we need. And I think there's ways to get that with the technologies available. And when we do get a chance to be together, it'll be even more special. I talked about on an interview recently, Ryan, the Roaring 20s, which is when we come out of a pandemic, not quite COVID, but there was a party on after that. And we do believe in celebration, and it will get to that point. But I don't think it'll ever swing back to what it was. That's all. And for those fewer people attending, I think it's going to mean more. I've been, in a dining table with 6 people, and one of them's Vidal Sassoon. And if I list off the other 5, it would blow your mind. You get into these intimate situations. Now, I've also been in a room with Vidal with 4,000 people watching him. And even though I felt he was talking to me, he was talking to the rest of the people. It's just situations. And I think this is going to bring a quality. I think if you were buying a ticket before, it's going to cost you more, but you will be in that royal feeling. And I think that's going to be awesome. So meanwhile, let's everybody build their brand. And now that I've seen your following, I'm going to tag you every time I post it. I'm not really a hand painter, more of a house painter. But, as I say, I have a tie to color. I help hairdressers make a living selling color, things like the color bar. That will increase your revenue. Just if you imagine building a salon from scratch, and if you put 50% of it as bathrooms, it'll be bathrooms. If you built 50% of it as a color bar, 50% of your business and some will be color. And that helps frequency of visit and other things. So I've very much been a pioneer of helping people make a living. Color is the greatest way to build loyalty and everything else. So I've always been into it, even though I'm not known as the guy that's up there showing you Pantones. I'm the guy kind of up there. Obviously, I work on a lot of highly colored hair, kind of crazy to some degree. We like it kind of funky and crazy. As a showman, that's not what I do in the salon. As a showman, that's what people like. And I think that's the great part about shows. A lot of what we're doing right now, we're not producing 30 girls deep. So we're kind of a little starved for that. And I'm excited to bring some of that to the table this year with Paul Mitchell. We're going to start doing our type of hair show. And unlike trying to build a 2-day program, which is like virtually, it's mind blowing from music to costumes to everything, I can build it out in bits and off that one goes and then do the next one. So I've got even more focus on it because it wouldn't be a scene I've ever built that I didn't think I could do better on if I had more time. And now to really take the time with it and really make each one just a beautiful, entertaining, learning experience that you can't wait to see the next episode. I think that's really where my mind's going in my old years.
Yeah. So where is Robert Cromians going in the future? Since everything's pivoting toward virtual, I can see the Robert Cromians show on YouTube or somewhere. Like, what's the plan?
Well, I've had a couple of opportunities, kind of maybe a show built, around the premise of me emceeing and kind of more talent that I would say, come watch these people. This is the good stuff right here. And, a lot of the trade shows are having a hard time building value into what they used to do because they took away the main stage. They didn't have the talent to provide it. So I advise a lot of these companies what to do. I said, well, first of all, without a BTC and a hairbrain, I would farm out a big section, just like Disneyland. That's hot dogs over there. Use what the industry's into and don't be so prehistoric in your thinking. So I've always been an enthusiast of talent. And my whole career, I've always been surrounded by talent. Quite a few have become quite famous. And I believe in that threshold of diversity. And I think of it from an audience point of view. I cut hair kind of crazily. But if I'm up there with maybe Angus Mitchell, who's Sassoon trained, I've worked in the past with DJ Muldoon. He used to work on my wing. So the reality of that is the diversity through, you may not like what I'm doing, you're going to love what DJ does. And I also worked with a young gentleman called Takashi, he was a sort of freak of nature. So either way, your taste level was hit. And that diversity is, I think, what people need. And, I think that's kind of moving forward where we got to go. But I got that question just like many of you. I plan to keep working. Paul Mitchell planned for me to keep working, even though I'm not doing shows right now. And that's what I've been doing. So they see a future for me, which I think is guidance, still doing a bit of performance, MCing, but building a show around a show. Like I love working with a barber scene. Sometimes it's 9 barbers, John Mosley, Fern the Barber, incredible talent, the most talent you could get on a stage. And I kind of MC through. And what I do is I interpret hairdressers' reactions to barbers. I like to develop talent, and I'd like to kind of take it to the industry as well, because there's kids out there that are doing incredible stuff I see on Instagram. And I'm like, if I could put those kids on a stage and get them the audience they deserve, it could be great television, because I've got to do so many different shows around the country. I'm going to ask my wife this question. What's the one in Italy, the magazine? It's called The Tribute Show. And we each get 30 minutes. You're allowed one pre-done and one that you do live, and it can be prepared as far as you need it to be. So Mark Hayes goes first. Then it's me. Then it's Tim Hartley. Tim goes through a tough time after I'm done. I don't do a pre-done. I do 2 live haircuts, one with a fork. Trevor Sorby's in the audience. I mean, but I love the format. It was very restrictive and it was very poignant. And I think these are things that I would like to kind of produce in the future, to where I go, this person to me is what you should be watching, and you get to see him tonight. So you kind of just trust, like somebody recommending good wine, that the show you're going to see is only going to have the best goods in it. And I don't see this necessarily being from a purely manufacturing point of view. It would have to be based purely on the skill set of what I know they possess. And if you want to cut hair, this is who you should be watching cut hair right now. And it could be multiples in each of those categories, color, whatever. I've been watching the world, and I kind of know where the magic is, let's put it that way. And it's all over the place. And I think that would make a great show to have that. BTC has that ability. They bring in the people that are the most in the demand today. I think that's what makes the show quite relevant, that sometimes the trade shows don't quite have that same magic for.
There was one story that you told a long time ago, and I'm sure you've told it several times over the years, that it really touched my heart. It just made me laugh too. I can't remember the movie that it was. There was a movie about the power of hairdressers. And this was, again, early on in maybe mid 2005, 2006. Can't remember the name of it. It was just really awesome. But you told a story about how your parents were in restaurants. They tried to get you to do that. You didn't want to do that. And then you became a pizza delivery boy because you didn't really know what you were going to do with your life. And you had an epiphany in that job. Can you tell me about that? Just the funniest story ever. No pressure.
It's JP's favorite story. He loves when I tell it. I tell it a lot when we work at our school events, because it's very real, the struggle. I had been forced from my family to kind of get into one side of business. But when I came to the States, I thought, I'm going to fulfill my dream. I always wanted to be a hairdresser, and they didn't support it. So I went straight to beauty school. I went to Memphis, Tennessee. And to pay the bills and be able to go to school full time, I took up a pizza delivery guy job. So now that if you don't know me, I mean, it's going to be hard for you to understand. But if you know the image I have, the persona I have, to imagine me in a red Domino's or whatever company it was, red shirt, wearing the hat, which you got to think of it this right. I hated wearing the hat, and now I'm known for wearing hats. Now think about this, if a full circle living. I do it as soon as I got out of the pizza place, I took the hat off when I was delivering it. So I'm working through school, and people that did that, you understand whether you're going to day or night school, there's a struggle there to make things meet and go through. So I've been delivering pizza, making some tip money, trying to pay our bills, eating some ramen. And one night we got a call for a large pepperoni pizza. So I stuff it in my bag and off I go. And I had a 1973 Ford Torino. It was a piece of junk, but that's what I was delivering. I had a little sign on top. Went to a neighborhood I'd never really been before. And, if you deliver pizza, it's really awesome when the people are outside waiting on you, because you don't have to find the apartment or the hotel room. I see a guy and I go, oh my God, there's the guy. So I pull over the car and I jump out and I'm holding the pizza. I come running up to the guy. I say, I got your pizza. And he goes into his jacket. I think he's going in for his wallet. He brings out a gun. Now, I just moved from Scotland. I've never seen a live gun. So when he sort of moved the gun at me and pointed at me, I made a little shake, Ryan. I made a little ringle, a little jingle. And I thought to myself inside, that's not a real gun. So he said this to me. He said, give me the pizza. Well, I only worked for Domino's, so I gladly gave him the pizza. He said, give me your money. Everything I had except maybe $5 was their money. He said, give me the money. I said, all right, there it is. And then he said the third thing. He said, take your pants off. So and I said, hell no. And he hit me on top of the head with the gun, and I could feel the weight of a Magnum 357. So what I realized was the gun was real. So as I lay on the ground with no pants on, I thought to myself, one, I'm going to make my mother happy, wear underwear. That was a bad idea, even though he thought it was, trendy. And the other was to make beauty school pay off. And when I go back to that occurrence, because this is a true story, when this guy said, take your pants off, what do you think's going through my mind is about to happen to me? He's using it as a deterrent that I wouldn't chase him. I think this guy's going to try and have sex with me. I'm like, I just moved to America. What a country this is. Like, shit, I don't know how this is going to work out. But really, it was just to stop me chasing after him. And I do believe a few days later, these guys were caught just because they kept doing the same sort of crime to pizza parlors. But as you're laying there and you think you're about to lose your life, you're like, well, what's most important? I wanted something out of the beauty industry. I wanted to honor my teachers more. And I just got in contact with one of my teachers in beauty school, which is many years ago now. And she said, Robert, I knew you'd become this the first day of beauty school. The times that in our lives that it's already kind of coming through is the things that I've been able to achieve and enjoy through the beauty industry are even a surprise to me. Sometimes I'll watch shows I've done and I go, no way I did that. No way. How do I even know how to do that? Oftentimes I do so much hair on stage, I get to a point I don't have to think about it. So me doing one haircut's too much pressure. Me doing 5 or 6, using a fork and using whatever trick I want. I'm more comfortable with that as a presenter. So the reality of you don't know when you get into this business what can happen. The fact that the relationships I've had, the people I've met from the relationship with Paul Mitchell, and we tell the story about beauty school. While I'm in beauty school, a DVD is played with JP and Paul. It's my first time to see Paul Mitchell. He was a Scotsman. He was a platform artist. He spoke his mind. He wasn't scared to use the F word. And I don't mean frizz. He was his own person. He had grown up much like I did in the trade show environment. So he had a great ability to connect with an audience. And he cut hair with a curved comb and curved scissors. And he was the guy that inspired the balloon trick for me because he set hair on balloons and then would pop the balloons and comb out the set. He was a showman and he used gadgets and bits and tricks. So I really got to become who I am by the first 3 months of school through a life-threatening moment where I nearly lost my life and also being inspired to a company that I've been with for nearly 37-something years, loyal to the same brand. It's quite an accomplishment because many people have they're freelance people. They can work wherever they want. But I've been very loyal to the brand and feel very proud of the fact that I've made contribution that things like Color Bar, Wash House, Take Home, it's in every one of our schools. I was in Michigan with a school owner that just finished a brand new build out. And he didn't really know me that well. His wife's the hairdresser. So we come walking in and I see the Color Bar up in lights and I see the wash. I see all these things that come out of my little head. And I'm like, oh my God, that just touched my heart. And he's like, why would that touch your heart? I said, well, these were concepts. These were ways to look at our business in a different way. And so what you've got to look at as a visionary is what you leave behind. Vidal pioneered precision hair cutting, would probably be the last to take credit for it and would never be upset that it was ripped off more than anything else has ever been. Because as a visionary, you do that. I think it's being humble and being gracious and kind of moving ahead. And when you see kids doing well, give them a shout out, just like people have done for me. I didn't become Robert Crome's overnight. I got a lot of encouragement and you kind of get to a point. And as I say, I'm very proud of what the industry's doing. Thankful for technology. I think it's going to change our whole world. And for the other side of COVID, when the vaccine and all the stuff gets worked out, we're going to go back to a different way. And, my wife's been doing hair 25 years, honey. She, for the first time in her career, marked herself out for lunch on her book. It's not fair to be going hungry or having not went to the bathroom or not had a drink of water. Take a walk outside because you're going to be wearing the PPP anyway. Just slow it down and become a little more effective and dangerous with it would be the message. And if you are slower, diversify, get into education, get into other things. I'm very fortunate. I do multiple jobs. And that would be, I wish I'd have for my son who's starting out, do a bit of this, get into some videos, do some clients, surf a bit, do whatever you want. Carve out the lifestyle you want to have. And if you're a parent and you want to spend more time with your family, that's awesome. If you want to get an education or you want to start skating or rollerboarding, whatever it is, just find the balance of life and you'll care more about each client. You'll care more about everything you do. And I think you'll see the difference of revenue will blow your mind of what we're talking about today, that this is the secret sauce that people don't talk about, that we've actually talked about forever, from the art of making money all the way through. It's always about this memorable experience. Even though you may have heard it before, now more than ever, you've got to create this habit. And if you can create it, you're going to see, you're going to see success. These numbers don't lie. It's not a hunch. I know this is the behavior that makes you successful. A lot of people pick their mentors And, I mean, I could be a great example. You may want to pick me as your mentor, but don't try and run a marathon. You're going to die. So what the industry needs in a couple of ways is more female representation or any other gender than male, because the reality is that's the biggest majority of the industry. And my wife's sort of day-to-day story is just remarkable on the things she does every day to be successful, from 35% take home, high ticket, $330 a guest, and not losing clients, just having a beautiful relationship with these people. In fact, when we put the GoFundMe page up, the first client I seen was one of hers and left $500. I'm expecting these clients to throw down a 5 or a 10. It's just amazing how appreciative they are. But that example of, and I've always felt this as a platform artist, and I learned it through building my first salon and starting to make a little bit of money behind the chair. And I would spread that love through knowledge. It's hearing that story for the reality of what it is. There's a lot of illusions on the internet of what you think. You're visualizing, oh, this person's a rock star, I want to be just like them. And then they go in and sleep in the back of their car. Pick your mentors wisely, and you can be inspired by people you never get to know or thank you. But the same token, if finances make the world go round, then why not focus on a couple of people that can help you financially to get the kind of idea, how do you sustain your career with this thing called doing hair? And I think this part that people wake up every day and realize they went to beauty school and never asked the question, how do I get paid? They never asked it. And now you're asking it and say, oh, I can't do it. Well, a little late now. But the reality is there is a way to set yourself on a pendulum. And I think my wife's a great example of somebody who knows what she's doing with it, but it's just basic stuff in certain degrees, but she's the master of it in our organization. And I just think more people need to see that in action, just like we complimented the hair doctor this morning. She's a great example. And that's why I support her so much, because I think she's what the industry needs. And that she is so outspoken and she's right on point. And she talks about money.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. This has been such a memorable experience. And to think that I was watching you on stage and you inspired me so many years ago. And now I get to chat with you, and I'm actually living in San Diego too. I would love more than anything, once it's safe, to come down there and buy you a coffee. I hear you like to drink a lot of coffee, and so do I. So would absolutely love that opportunity. But anyway, in closing, Robert, how can people watch, support, and just say hi to you?
Probably my Instagram. I work on my own accord. I kind of get up early in the morning, so I kind of play with it. It's like a game. So that's the best way. DM me, whatever it is. And, if you don't know who I am, have a little look at the feed. Usually it's a little more hair centric. It's got a bit of hair on it, but it's got other stuff that we're talking about, California and other points, but all that goes into the same thing. We're in a heartfelt business. It's touching people's hearts and souls. And I'd also check out my wife's, which is obviously Mary Cromeans, but it's Como Cromeans. She must have knew she was going to marry me, so she had that built in advance. And she's a profound educator, and keep an eye on her. She's always doing beauty tricks up there. And obviously we do stuff on Facebook because it's longer format. And I have a couple of pages up there. That would be it. And you can't really get on the internet and dodge me.
Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait till we chat again.
Thanks, Ryan.
I love hearing from you. And by the way, have you subscribed to the podcast yet? Oh my gosh, if you haven't, please do so right now, because there's so much cool stuff ahead. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because it would be much cooler if you did. Plus, I don't want you to miss any of the new episodes I'm dropping weekly. Last thing, if you haven't checked out ryanweeden.com yet, there are some great freebies on there that I want to give you. So go ahead and check it out, ryanweeden.com. Thank you so much for listening. You are awesome.